Hello, hello. How you doing?
Are we both unmuted?
Yes, we are. We're good. We're good. I am Ramón Pérez.
I am Eric Vedder.
And this is Make Shit Mondays.
Woohoo! And from Mondays.
So I can't. I'm not even going to try. What are you drinking tonight, Eric?
What am I drinking, you say?
Yes.
Little Diplomatico rum.
Oh, something new today.
I really like rum, dark rum.
I've never had that before.
That's very tasty.
Really, now you got me curious. When I visit the Black Wolf Bar next time, I might have to have a glass.
Black Wolf Lounge, sir.
Sorry, Black Wolf Bar.
It's all good.
I'm going to my standard, my tequila here, the Tierra Noble, which is actually a great value for your price.
All right.
What you're getting here, nice and simple. One day we'll get sponsors, alcohol sponsors.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah, that's all we need.
I know, right? All right, buddy.
All right, cheers, fella.
Cheers, man. Cheers,
number
episode
5?
number 4. 4 or 5? No, 5, you're right. Yeah.
And cheers to Rob behind the camera, who's always working on this.
Agreed.
All of his hard work. He has to listen to our, not only our nonsense, but he has to also, we spend an hour getting ready technically because we're so challenged. So
we're so challenged.
He's a whiz at helping us out with this.
Speak for yourself. All right. So we're doing a little bit something different today, aren't we?
Yes,
we have no guests. We are each other's
We are
guests.
the guests.
We are the guests. We figured, you know what, after 4 episodes, that maybe we should introduce ourselves to our viewers who may or may not be familiar with us, right? So this is going to be a little bit more of a casual conversation between us, a little bit about our lives, about everything, career, whatnot, and for those listening, feel free to ask away.
Yeah, please.
This will be a great time because I know sometimes when we have a guest, we feel guilty if we kind of distract away from the guest talking with questions, but we don't mind interrupting each other. For some good questions and curiosities. So please, if you're there,
I think we talked about this before we started doing this. Maybe because we talked about a variety of different ideas for doing this show. Right, one is having guests, obviously. I think initially we were just gonna be you and me, and then maybe we should have a guest, and
keep it interesting, right?
And Dax was a good fit because we had his Dax Gordine. We had his Forest Folk Kickstarter, which was great. Oh, who's this? Yo, I found one of these guys. Day 2.
Yamirez.
Okay.
There you go. 2.
Happy to have you here.
Welcome. Join in.
And then some of the other ideas were having a show where we talk about our lives, who the hell we are.
Yeah.
Exactly. What gives us the right to be making shit on Mondays?
Yeah, who is the Black Wolf? Who is the Calavera Kid?
Self-named.
Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed. I like how we've given ourselves nicknames. We're not shying away from it, but I think some of the other ideas we talked about too is when we maybe have a spotlight on
some of
our projects.
I think that'd be great.
Spend an hour or two just talking and showing. It'd be kind of cool to show concept art, the years of development that went into some of this stuff or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit behind the scenes tour, right? Yeah. It's like the DVD extras before the DVD is out, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the first one where it's just you and me, and we're talking about our weird lives.
Exactly. What are you drawing today? Speaking of art earlier.
What am I drawing?
What are you drawing?
On a technical device.
With your fingers?
Called an iPad. I don't want to brag. But
you're iPadding it today. You're actually going high tech.
I'm going to the thing I've been working on in the previous. This is the best I've come up with right here. By the way,
you have a camera on your iPad.
As fast as I can. Because it's nothing. I was like, does this thing work? It does. Anyway, I'm trying to start putting together that image I've been working on the last 4 episodes. So what do we got here?
Hey, dude. Okay, I didn't know what the little tag code, who that was, but hey, I had a great time chatting the other day.
Right on, man.
And
that's cool.
Yeah. Yes, Boba Fett is my roommate. I say that with joking, but realistically, I also have a life-sized Boba Fett in my house. Yeah, it's a long story behind that one. Maybe I'll come into the stories we get into today as we chat with each other in our careers and our things. So as you're getting set up here, why don't we just start talking? Why don't we start a little bit of a background on each of us here? Do you want me to start? Do you want you to start? How do you? You seem like you seem like you're setting things up here a little bit.
I'm trying to understand technology.
Even though I have nothing on my screen right now. Actually, what should I draw? Maybe I should actually reach out to the crowd out there because I have no game plan for today's art. I could work on one of my own things. I do have some commissions I have to do, but unfortunately those are on traditional paper and I don't have that set up right now for some art. Actually, I just sold an original. Actually, I can share an original. This was like my first Star Wars piece, like actually get paid to do.
Oh wow!
It was not the most charming. It was an Ithorian, but an awesome guy just bought this a couple days ago.
Oh wow! And, your very first Star Wars piece?
Yeah, like to be paid to do Star Wars, basically. Sure. Yeah. It wasn't the most exciting of characters. It's like a Ithorian shaman for all the nerds out there, but lots of fun to do. Back when I worked in traditional media, so a little bit of watercolor, a little bit of ink, a little bit of pencil crayon, which I'd actually like to get back into. I've been doing more commissions lately. Actually just catching up on some old ones, really. And I've been bringing out the watercolors and some of my old traditional tools, which has been quite awesome.
Yeah, nice.
To do that again. I got inspired by everybody diving in during COVID, and I was very jealous, right? So draw something sexy.
That's kind of...
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm getting inspired now. Okay, I like this. This is before. Is this before you got into the art scene, Eric?
Yeah. I felt like, you know what? It just wasn't for me. I'm like, let's do something else. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere with this kind of body.
I like the stoic expression. That was blue steel. It was very.
Oh man.
Very blue steel there. Very focused. Oh man.
Hey, Mom and Dad, what's up?
Hey, Sarah. So draw something sexy like Eric. Maybe I will draw Eric.
Oh, geez, don't do that.
No, maybe.
You did those fantastic head
caricatures in the Raid 2
or whatever for Raid 2. Man,
those were lots of fun. Yeah, dude. I actually have those up here. Those are a lot of fun to do. I actually redrew one of them today for our next newsletter because we have a little bit of a focal thing on Gabe Sapienza, a Raid member. And his hair has obviously got COVID hair now. He's got long locks. So I had to adjust the image to do something for the newsletter. So that was kind of fun to revisit some old art from a few years ago. What does a girl have to do to buy a commission piece? Oh, that's I'll be honest with you. My agent, Essential Sequential, is always bugging me due to commissions, and I am perhaps the worst individual to do for commissions outside of conventions. At conventions, no problem. I'll do up to 20 to 30 commissions over the weekend. But once I leave a convention, it is hard-pressed for me to actually get to the commission list. So, like, for example, the couple that I was getting to earlier today were literally from 2 years ago. So,
nice, buddy.
It's just not something. It's just my extra time is very limited. And,
yeah, that is true. It's so much easier to catch us at a convention. Sorry, not easy. I'm just saying, for me, like I do commissions for sure. I still take one once in a while, but anytime that anybody asks for them, I'm like, look, I'm just going to preface this by saying you might have to wait 6 months to a year because I'm juggling a million things, and at this point, like I also have a full-time job, so it's not even about like, I want the money or anything like that. It's just I just don't have time, and the time is so valuable, right? So, but it's not off the table. Sarah. So
it is harder though. I find like I don't know.
It's just harder. So I can blame COVID because of 100%. You can blame COVID for a lot of things. So
yeah.
Well, why don't you get started there, handsome?
On the story? All right.
Yeah, tell me about your childhood. Where were you born?
My childhood.
Yeah.
I was born in a little redneck town called Oshawa, which is a couple hours outside, maybe an hour outside of Toronto where I live now. But I was born to immigrant parents. My mother and father, both European, mother from Poland, father from Spain. They met here once. I feel it was a fateful night of partying and a couple of drinks, and next thing you know, they're probably having a shotgun wedding to legalize things. But so I grew up in a small town, had a lot of great friends. I moved around a lot to various schools, high schools, so I didn't really settle down much till I know, right? I want a raid hat, and someone was supposed to get everybody a raid hat, but only made one for himself. I'm just saying.
I made 4. I asked in chat. I was like, all right.
But yeah, drawing has been something I've been doing my whole life since I was a kid. Whether it was kind of like an escapist thing for me. Like I remember drawing as like super far, like 4 or 5 years old. I have like old sketches. I would like draw things around the house and then, as with many of my generation, like when I saw things like Star Wars and Buck Rogers, I was just blown away, and that just kind of triggered me into a whole realm of inspiration and just wanting to just create worlds with my art, basically. And so that's kind of what I've been doing since a young age. I used to do comic strips for friends, like Sunday Funny style. Which actually later on in years, speaking of our good man behind the curtain, Rob Kugler, Rob and I actually had a comic called Butternut Squash, which is still available online, butternutsquash.net, and it was kind of our lives in our early 30-somethings, basically, as we, both met each other and became friends and explored our lives in Toronto, basically.
Where can you see that, or where can you find that?
It's still online at butternutsquash.net.
Oh, good man, look at that.
And what? Oh, there you go. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I feel it was interesting because I started doing butternut squash with Rob in the early time of my career. Because I couldn't get any comics work. I was doing a lot of work in kind of magazines. Role-playing games was one of my big first things I did a lot of work in for the first decade of my career almost. So because I couldn't get comics work, I kind of created my own comics online. And basically, we actually created quite a following. Like I actually did a tour around Europe based on our readership of our webcomic. We were like huge. We had a massive audience in like Poland, Germany.
For Kookaburra?
No, for Butternut.
Oh, sorry. That's what I meant.
yeah. Kookaburra is my other webcomic, which I started years later, like 5-6 years later. But I felt, we have Rob and I used to keep a little black book of our ideas sorry, I just keep hearing this weird knocking sound.
Is that me?
Well, I have no idea. Of all these ideas, we never actually put to paper. Basically, it was just kind of a fun, quirky comic about our lives, and it'd be nice to revisit that, or maybe even collect them one day with a Kickstarter or whatnot, and tell maybe a few more of the stories. Even who knows?
Well, so I'm trying to backtrack a bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, I just kind of meandered there.
You're a bit of a rambler.
Yeah, I know. I'm a rambler. My girlfriend hates it.
I was like you're skipping over all kinds. I'm like, you mentioned your parents getting married and stuff.
Yep.
And you grew up in Oshawa and stuff.
Yep.
Did you move around a lot? Did you?
Yeah, I did actually. So I moved around within Oshawa, and then also I lived on a farm for a while. My parents got it's a small town called Orono, which is maybe an hour and a half north east of Oshawa. We kind of had like grew our own vegetables. We traded with neighbors who had goats and chickens. We also kept chickens. We had quail, rabbits. I loved it up there. That's actually probably my favorite place growing up, where I lived. Like, it was just like I had tree forts in the backyard. I would climb trees, swing. Like, it was just like, hey, a kid would love, just like the opportunity for adventure. Basically, it just was just endless out there, right?
Yeah.
No parents worrying about you in the city or whatever. I mean, rightfully, I probably probably could have died a few times. Some of the shit I attempted, but yeah, I loved it out there. So, anyways, I moved around a lot. My parents separated while we were out there.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Sarah. And it wasn't until high school till I actually settled down for one school for like the entirety of basically that part of my life, I guess. Up until then, I was jumping around quite a bit. So, like, I would make great friends, but then you'd move 2 years later, and you'd have to make more friends again. So, I often think, playing self-psychology, but I think, like, art became kind of one of my my kind of touchstones, where no matter where I went, I had that art to do whatever I wanted to, right? So,
yeah, it was reliable.
Exactly, yeah.
It never left. You never left it.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just always there creating, and that would always be my when I went to a new school, they'd be like, "Oh, you're an artist," and so like that was your connection to meeting new people.
Yep.
And
everyone liked an artist when they were in school. Like, "Oh, you draw?"
Yeah, exactly. Right. So
you had this magical power.
Yeah, exactly. So it was great. But yeah, it was a lot of, it was just so anyways, I love that place out in the country. And then
that's cool, man.
After that, I moved back to Oshawa after my parents separated, and went to Paul Dwyer Catholic High School, which, because my parents, I was in public and Catholic schools all my life. I actually preferred the public schools. I found them much friendlier. The kids were much meaner. Catholic schools. But actually, I made some of my lifelong friends in high school, which I am still in contact with today, which has been great. We don't see each other as much as we used to, obviously, because you grow apart, you get older, you move to different cities, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so. Anyways, that was a meandering tale of my.
No, that's good. That's
my youth.
I like to hear.
And then, how about you? What's your? I know a little bit of your background, but the people out there don't. So let's find out a little bit more.
Well, you talked about like moving around a lot, and we did that too. My parents are both Dutch, and I was really cheering for Holland in Euro Cup and every other World Cup, and they keep losing. But that's okay. I'm a Leafs fan, so I'm used to losing. Leaf things losing and stuff. Like it's fine. I'm not sad or bitter about it at all. But anyway, so my parents are both Dutch. I was born and raised in St. Catharines, not too far from here, about 2 hours. We moved quite. My whole family's Dutch. All my relatives, everyone's Dutch. So. Early on, my dad had an opportunity to get to work as a plumber out in Holland. He was a plumber here.
Oh shit! Okay.
And like I said, everyone was from Holland, and all of my mom's side stayed back in Holland. And she came here when my dad's side was all over here. So they thought, well, now's a chance to go live in Holland with my mom's side. You know what I mean? Like split it up a little. Let's share the hangs.
Yeah.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch? That's German. We moved there. I think they pulled us out of grade 3 and up.
Oh, you actually lived in Holland?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, I didn't know that.
Up and moved to Holland at an early age, in grade 3. So I transplanted into a school there and didn't know how to speak it, but had to learn how to speak it and obviously attend school. So you talk about making friends and moving around. It's like, oh, geez. So I attended 2 different schools out there. We were only there for almost 2 years, but I went up a grade and we moved houses. So, like, it's crazy the memories I have and how vivid they were, even though they're short amount of time, but they definitely formed my formed my opinion, the way I am today, and like my experiences. And I actually think that
100%, yeah.
more people should travel and have exposure to the world at a younger age, because it really. I'm not saying I'm worldly or know anything. I'm far from it. It's funny because it gives you that sense of like the wanderlust, or is it like where you're constantly, oh, there's a bigger world out there than just where I grew up and stuff, right? So
yeah, no,
I had to
100%.
I had to learn a whole new language, and to the point where like I thought in Dutch, I wouldn't even think in English. I had to kind of relearn English when I came back. So
yeah, actually, out of curiosity, do you still speak Dutch?
A klein beetje. A little bit.
A little bit. It's funny.
And it's awful.
Yeah. It's funny how you lose that, because not to because I while I didn't move to Poland or Spain, I spent summers there a lot, and because a lot of my like Oshawa, where I grew up, there's a lot of ethnic communities. So like all my friends before I went to school were Polish or Spanish, but mostly Polish because my mother's friend circle. And I actually knew Polish before English.
Oh, wow.
And and the teacher had to separate us at school because we'd start chatting away this little block of Polish kids, and she wouldn't know what we were saying. We're laughing and giggling, and you know what I mean? It was kind of funny, and I'm sad that I've lost that. My Spanish is way better these days. My Polish is abysmal. Though I find a good travel back to Europe is always welcome to kind of brush up.
Oh, totally.
On the languages,
Yeah, whenever I return to visit, I wish I did more often. It's quick. It's like I can understand it a lot better than speaking it. I think that's probably for everybody, right?
I always joke there's like a filing cabinet in your head that you just kind of blow the dust off of, and it's all there.
Yeah. So moved there in like grade 3, went to school there. I think it was grade 2, grade 3, because I got moved back a grade because the level of teaching is so much more efficient and better over there. Not better, that's the wrong word. I just think they ask a lot of the kids at that age, which I think was good. But I just was like, grade 3 over there, I was like, what the fuck's going on? So I went back a grade. Had a great friend group there, and back then, this is like early 80s, mid 80s.
Okay, but you got put back a grade there.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because it was just they were just a more advanced.
I just couldn't. So basically, you were stupid by Dutch standards. By Dutch standards, you weren't smart enough.
Oh, that's cute. You're a Canadian. Back you go. So, But I made a great group of friends there, and
nice.
Had a lot of great times down there, and it was just cool to kind of get to know my family a lot over there, and then we moved back here, and back to St. Catharines of all places again. We didn't go anywhere else, so, which is totally fine. And then I went to a couple schools here, and ever since I was a kid, I just loved drawing and being like, I couldn't wait for like craft class in kindergarten before we went to home, because like I'd always grab the black construction paper to make Batman. I couldn't wait to make Batman. I made it every time, every week. Like you could explore a little more, Eric, but anyway. But yeah, it was a really great experience. I do miss it. I wish sometimes that I lived there or would visit more often and kind of get a permanent place out there with my wife or something. Or just if I had all the money in the world, I'd just have a place in Amsterdam.
Oh yeah, it's a gorgeous city. Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm rambling here. But
Rob and I actually visited there for the first time. I guess 2019 now, just prior to COVID, and such a beautiful, beautiful city. Look forward to going back for a little bit of a longer, longer trip.
It's something else, man, to see there. We love it. So, so come back here, and it was so crazy because the friends I left before I moved, I saw again, and they had changed. They were like, that's when like things were cliquey, and people had like I was a nerd, and I'm like, oh man, like what happened to these people that were my friends? They're now too cool and stuff. And we didn't have any money, right? My parents are Dutch, first of all, so they're cheap. And of course, we don't have any money, so like I can't buy any of the cool clothes. So when you're that young, it's like, yeah, sorry, pal, you're not cool. Get out of here. So anyway, so I spent a lot of time drawing, playing video games, and doing a lot of skateboarding. So that was just kind of those were my friends, in a way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then I just kind of kept drawing. No real idea of like what I was going to do with it. I mean, I love comics. I discovered like Nth Man, I think, was the first comic.
I remember Nth Man.
Store.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, look at that! I saw this cool like anatomy, and I started trying to copy it and draw it. And of course, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, and then I found like issue 6 of Spawn, and I was like, what is this? And it was just, from there when I started collecting all kinds of stuff and whatever. But that was kind of my childhood. Like I'm trying to remember everything else. Like Holland was such a big factor because to move there and come back, you're just like, it's a shell shock to come back to Canadian society, which is the feeling I remember when we landed and got to my Oma's house out in Wainfleet. She had this farm, and you got there and you just felt like there was billions of miles and kilometers of space. Because Holland's so compact and efficient and stuff, and you get there and it just felt so chill and like you didn't see anybody for ages because it's so a big country. But it was cool to come back and get back into Canada life. But it took a while to adjust for sure.
Oh, I bet. Actually, you brought up something. I don't know if it's interesting, but I'm curious if it had any impact on you, because your father, you said, was a plumber.
Yep.
And so my father was also a tradesman. He was a mechanic, and my mom was a nurse. Did that but I know my dad was always getting me to do stuff, being like old school European, like your father's like, come, we're gonna be doing all the plumbing in the house, or we're gonna be tilling the land today. Like, was that something that you dealt with?
I followed my dad on a lot of plumbing jobs, like unwillingly, because I'm like, I don't want to do that, Dad.
Same. Same. Yeah.
I'm an artist, Dad. I these hands are not meant to plumb. To construct. Yeah. I'm an artiste, and like he just couldn't understand it. He's like, what? Who is this?
Oh, same.
I remember when speaking of like the next stage is like applying to colleges and stuff. He's just like. There's always, there's spot welder jobs in Toronto. They're always looking for spot welders. I'm like, what the shit is a spot welder, Dad? Like, don't you understand? I'm an artist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And and it's funny because speaking of my dad, and I found like an old portfolio of his, because back in the day when he lived in Wainfleet as a kid or a teenager, he sent away to these art courses, and I found like these old Frazetta drawings that he was trying to imitate, like the one where they're on the snow one where they're on the sled and there's like 2 polar bears pulling him over the. He had drawn that, and I was like, "What is this?"
Oh yeah.
And so, but he's like, "Yeah, there's no money in art. I'm going to be a plumber." So it was
funny that you mentioned that, because.
Sorry, it was just cool to find that my dad did that. I was like, oh shit! So that's probably where I got like the curiosity and the drive to be an artist, because it came from, because he's a true craftsman. Like my dad could model, build. He's an inventor. He makes all these crazy devices at home. me and my friend Brian Frew and I will sit there and make fun of him, because I'll go home and look what he made now, and it's not waste not, want not kind of thing, right? Just
100%, 100%.
Sam, yes, they do wear wooden shoes. My dad had wooden shoes, and
they're comfortable as hell.
Yeah, the classic. He had an old pair of wooden shoes in the house. So
it's funny because my dad's the same way. Like jury rigged whatever to make whatever work. Like he'd build, whether it was like barbecues or jury rig, like some electrical thing that around the house. He was a mechanic by trade, but he was also like just an everything fix-it guy, I think, which was just part of that culture back then.
I think it's just like old timers. They just knew everything because they had to. Like post-war.
Yeah, exactly. And like you, I kind of hated it. My dad would be like, "Come on, we're doing this," and I'd be like, "Oh, for fuck's sake," like. But now, like as 20 years later or whatever, 30 years later, you're like, "Oh fuck, thank God he actually taught me some of that shit."
Oh, I know, man.
Because it's actually come in handy. Like you may have hated it at the moment, but by osmosis, you picked up some of it.
Yeah.
And but it was funny.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I'm just not afraid to like pick up a power tool. I actually know how to use it.
Exactly, right?
So
and it's funny because my dad, you mentioned this painting by your dad that you found, and while my dad didn't paint, I found this sketchbook of his where he just drew cars, this beautiful
that's cool
rendition, and he would do it all in ballpoint pen and then colored in with the few limited pencil crayons he had at the time, and they were amazing. And it was like I cherished it. I would go, and it was kind of sad because I actually damaged the book once because I like would cart it around with me everywhere, and I think I dropped it in a creek at one point or something like that. So like my dad was just livid with me. He was just like screaming at me, but like you saw the talent. There was that talent. And he just he took that talent for creating and just channeled it into mechanics. Like I've heard stories like I asked him like because my dad never went to school beyond elementary / pseudo high school, which like the town school where he grew up in.
Yeah.
Like it was like a small village. So like I often, I remember asking him once years ago, like, how'd you learn mechanics? He's like, well, my dad had a car, like one of the first cars in the village, and I just took it all apart and I put it back together. Like, it's
there you go.
And took notes along the way, right? So you're like, oh, yeah, you see that kind of, it's just a refocus of that creative spark,
Well, that's the thing. Like, my dad is such a pro, like at everything he does. Like I always admired because we do a lot of like model building, like airplane model building, like using balsa wood and like like those what were they called, super light planes that you'd wind them up with the rubber band, throw them in the air, and I was just fascinated by that stuff, and he could build that. Like his always worked, mine didn't. So, but I was always admired his ability for that stuff. So but
rightfully so.
It was Holland was fascinating, and it I definitely would love to return in some fashion and more frequently, right? So, but yeah, and then so I guess that's kind of we're kind of trying to think of like we're moving along in segments together.
Yeah, so this is like a summation of our youth, basically. There's probably a million more things there that could be asked. What was the music you liked? What was whatever,
Yeah,
but we don't want to eat up the whole day talking about, or the whole night talking about our dads and how awesome they were and what they did. But you mentioned, actually, I think my dad had the same reaction that your dad had when you talked about applying for art as, for college, university. Oh, what's Sarah saying here? Mine's aggressive creative. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, it's true. It's funny because like my dad was the same way. He, while I think my mother, it was funny because my mother put me in art classes when I was probably in grade 5 or 6, like night school classes with adults who were like 22 to 40, and I'm like this like young punk of a kid in there drawing with them. But she really went out of her way to, after my parents' separation, to foster my skills,
encourage that.
Yeah, encourage them. Whereas my dad was, very old school, like kind of like what you were saying, like they're looking for welders, or they're looking for plumbers or electricians. You want something stable, and so like when I ended up going to art school, it really ruffled his feathers a little bit.
Well, he just didn't understand it, right? But it's funny because as school progressed, I know we're going to get into colleges and stuff. It's like as that progressed, he started to see like, oh, there's money in this. Oh, okay, keep going, son, keep going.
I think it wasn't till like I think it was like a good decade after I graduated and I was making a career for myself and Yeah, it wasn't until like it's not until they see the fruits of your labors or your.
Well, they're obviously concerned about your well-being, and they want
Yeah.
you to do well. And they're,
Yeah.
there's probably a little bit of that old school male mentality of like, oh, the man has to provide and all that bullshit, right? So,
Yeah.
So
And,
I understand where like they're
and that's
coming from
how
a
they
different
knew.
age, right? They're coming from a different age, and like they were told that yeah, go get RSPs, this and that, and
Yep.
get a stable job. It's like, well, that stuff kind of started to disappear as we came into the internet age and jobs changed and stuff, right? So
For sure.
they weren't wrong. It's just
No,
different.
no, it's different. Like,
Yeah.
it was a different era back then too, for sure. I have to remember my dad actually, because he started with a really small company that really appreciated him, but as the decades passed, it got bought out by larger conglomerates and larger things, and he became a number. And that unique spark that he brought to the smaller company, where he would fix something, where instead of replacing it, or make it work another few days before the official checkup had to happen or whatever. You know what I mean? All that like old school skill, they were just like, no, we just replace it, buy it, whatever,
Nah.
toss that out.
Yeah.
And he was just like, he went from loving going to work to kind of just going, maybe not hating it, maybe a little bit hating it, but no longer feeling appreciated. And that's, I think, when he also started to see the choice where I kind of decided to be a boss for myself, right?
Sure.
And was like, maybe you had something there.
Yeah.
Young Perez, so yeah, it's interesting just how times, and that'll obviously probably happen generation from now or two or down the line as well, right?
Yeah.
But so jump into school, since we've touched upon it. Boom, just like that. And we actually talked about this in a few other episodes, a little bit here and there. But you took art fundies, I guess, and then but we both went to the same school, like, for a bit.
Well, I as high school was winding down, or actually even early in high school, I was like, some kid came into my art class with a Bristol board and had some X-Men characters drawn.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, it blew my fucking mind. I'm like, whoa, you can go to school for that? And like, this is like grade 9, and I'm like, right then and there, the teacher said he went to Sheridan. I was like, I'm going to Sheridan. I didn't even know what Sheridan was. I just knew that school could get me to that drawing.
Yeah.
And I was mesmerized. So that was kind of where it started. And then the end of high school was like, okay, I'm just going to keep pumping. Like, I think my last year of school, like grade 13, I dumped all my classes and then just did like 4 art classes every day. I just redid I did my earlier years. I just redid grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, and then the OAC art. I'm like, yeah, whatever, that's my day.
Wow.
Just to kind of pump my portfolio and whatever, right? But I still didn't know what I was doing.
That's funny. I was kind of the same way, actually. I didn't actually know I read comics growing up, and I loved it. Like, I didn't actually get into like Marvel and that kind of stuff till probably later, like grade 6, grade 7, around there. Before that, I was a lot of the Garfields, Calvin and Hobbes, the Sunday funnies in the newspaper, and a lot of movies. I was a big movie kid growing up, more than comics. And but it wasn't till. So, like, actually, when I was applying, I was just, like, looking into, like, architecture. I was looking into graphic design. Like, I didn't know what to do with my abilities.
Yeah.
And they didn't really help you with that in my school. Like, they were kind of like, this is where you can apply. You could be, like, an art teacher. You could work as an architect, But there was never, like, Illustrator just didn't come up as a search.
No.
You know what I mean? And so you were kind of just, like, I was, like, at a loss. And it wasn't until... And then there was like fine art. So that was like one of the other things. You apply for fine art, but I found a lot of the places where I applied for fine art, they were just like paint your feelings, which seemed like a dandy, lovely idea, but I was just like, I don't want to pay to go paint my feelings.
Yeah.
I wanted some to actually learn. So it was funny. I randomly a friend of the family recommended Sheridan for animation, and I looked up animation, and while animation didn't actually sound like something I wanted to do, while I was looking it up, I came across their illustration program at Sheridan, and I called them up because I didn't know how things worked. So I was like, I'd like to apply. And they're like, well, just send in your portfolio. And I was like, I need my portfolio for university because I got interviews, and like I didn't know you could like photocopy it or send it in, right? Like I would just, this is also be back before the internet, emailing things
way
before, and so it was actually pretty cool. One of the teachers at Sheridan wrote me back and said, "Listen, come on down this day. I'll look at your portfolio." And I'll set up kind of a slideshow tour of the school for you. And I was just like, oh, that's pretty awesome. And it was one of those things where I just stepped out of my car onto the campus. And it wasn't even the campus I would be attending because the school actually ended up changing locations the year I ended up going. It was in the Brampton campus, and it was switching to the Oakville campus. And so, like, the guy showed me, he's like, yeah, we're going to be switching. But, like, he gave me this tour of all, like, the classrooms and what they were working on. And I saw the art by the students. And he gave me a slideshow and said, like, check this out. This is what you'll be learning. And I was just like, it's like that scene in, like, the Blues Brothers when the light shines down on Jake, and it's like we're on a mission from, everything opened up. You're like, I was like, this is where I have to go. Like, the wealth of knowledge that was being presented to me that it was just blowing me away. I was like, I have to learn this stuff. Like,
part of it was like, where else would you going to get that kind of knowledge?
Yeah,
because I couldn't find it anywhere, right? Like, I loved all my art teachers and stuff, but like, they didn't really teach me much, right? Like, they were just, and no slight against them, but it's like I wanted to learn about anatomy and perspective and all.
Exactly, yeah.
Or stuff that I didn't even know I wanted to learn about. I knew they were going to teach it there, right? So.
Exactly, yeah. No, that's exactly it. And I was just blown away. I was like, holy shit, I'm going to learn all this stuff. Like, whereas all the university interviews were like, here's a painting of like a red swatch with like some stripes. And I was like, yeah, it's great. But, it wasn't giving my brain the tickle as the stuff at Sheridan was. And, I'm so glad I went. It was such a good, and the great thing about the program was that all the teachers were working professionals, which I also loved. Like, they were people who actually were out there.
You're walking the walk.
Yeah. And they were giving, and it was great because after I graduated, they were like, here's our numbers. Give us a call if you need any insight. So if I had contract issues or needed some, help on quoting a job or whatever it might be, they were there to help out, which was also quite amazing.
Yeah. You're right, Mom and Dad. Nobody knows what we're doing,
and we still don't.
Rob's saying that we'll make some comments about the space being open at the cafe.
Like at the front end. I mean,
that.
Yeah, I think so. Basically, the road. I mean, to jump ahead to present day. So Raid Studio, where I spend majority of my time.
Oh, look at that. Damien and Mark.
Oh, shit. Nice.
A couple of handsome fellas. Look at those guys.
Yeah, so we moved into this space, must have been mid-2018, and we renoed it from top to bottom. Eric came down a couple times from London, from his place, helped with drywall.
Mostly you renoed it.
But, hey, the stuff that Dad taught back when I didn't want to listen kind of came in handy, right?
Big time.
But yeah, actually, I think as of this weekend, places are allowed to open up again in Toronto. We've been under a kind of a severe lockdown here, but now because we've reached, I think, 70% vaccination rate here in Ontario and Toronto especially, a lot of restrictions are now being lifted. And so, yeah, we're excited to actually have people come in the space, new members, people wanting to work in an artist community. We have a lot of tables. We have a great cafe in the front, El Almacen, run by a good friend of mine and his wife. Make some great home cooking there and amazing
empanadas,
coffee. Oh yeah, the empanadas are the smell, the fresh baked smell as a waffle. I'm like, oh my god.
How are you not 20 pounds heavy?
Oh, dude.
That with these guys right in front, man. These guys are fantastic. I love them. And it turned out so well. I remember putting that window in.
Jeez. Yeah, it was just amazing. So, yeah, we're excited to actually have people come by, check out the art on the walls. We still have the Dax Gordian exhibit, the Forest Folk exhibit up from the Kickstarter for all the local Torontonians who might be in the area. Or
there's the address.
So swing on by if you're in the area or nearby. Have a coffee. We'll have some tables set up out front so you can chill out.
It's such a cool space. I actually haven't been there when it's been completely complete because of COVID, but
we actually finished the last part. That part, the photo in there, was done.
Coming up soon, so
that was one thing that COVID actually allowed us to do in a weird way, was actually finish that up.
Yeah, and it needed to be finished. Right?
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah, no.
It was where it went to where it is now. Jeez, where it was to where it is now.
Yeah, no, totally,
fantastic,
totally.
Yeah, that's cool, dude. So you were talking about Sheridan. So anything else that came from that? Like,
I mean, actually, the one cool part is, like, once again, my stupidity as an artist. Like, I was I was going for illustration, and I loved comic books, but I never actually considered comics as a career. Like, it was never, like, I never was like, I'm going to be a comic book artist. I was never a career choice, even up until my first couple of years in college, where I was still drawing comics on the side, having fun with it. It wasn't until I met a couple of great people in my program, a fellow by the name of Tom Basner, who ended up going into animation, but he was actually a plumber, wanting to come back to school. So he was about 10 years older than me when I was there, and he had actually gone to the Kubert School in New York for a year. Cool, for a year in comics. But it was such an expensive endeavor, he couldn't afford to go back for second year, so he decided to come to Sheridan in hopes of kind of refining his skills further. And the other fellow was Larry Mcdougall, who's a beautiful, amazing painter. He does some beautiful fantasy, kind of Arthur Rackham style artwork. And he was, he worked for, he was also an older gentleman. And he had worked in gaming and fantasy art for years in black and white before coming to Sheridan. He came to the program to learn how to paint, basically.
Oh, that's cool.
So both these guys were like, hey, why don't you, you love comics, why don't you do comics for why don't you go? And I was like, this is once again it's like, what? I could do that? That's amazing. They took me to my first con. I went to Toronto, went to Big Apple Comic Con in New York. And once again, I was blown away.
New York.
About what the possibilities now that were in front of me, And thanks to Larry, he pointed me also in the direction of working for gaming companies and RPGs and fantasy artwork, saying, he'd be like, you'd be a great fit. So after I graduated, I was, had no luck really getting comic book work. I tried a couple of portfolio things with Vertigo and Marvel, but I'd always get the compliments like, hey, you're good, but we have nothing for you. I'm like, all right. So I applied to the gaming places, and a great fellow by the name of Kevin Simbita from Palladium Books. I just did after partying for a year and getting that out of my system. After I graduated, I just came back, went out all the time, partied. My dad was getting furious with me. Because I moved back home, but then at one point there's a little switch went off in my head, and I was like, okay, that I got it out of my system, and the next step was now to actually get my career started. Get down to business, essentially. So I took a week or two, put together a portfolio of fantasy art, a lot of cyberpunk, a lot of fantasy, Tolkien-esque kind of stuff. And I sent that portfolio to about 6 or 7 different companies. And it was just black and white artwork. I wasn't the strongest painter at that time. And Kevin from Palladium Books was one of the only guy who responded. And he called me up because this is once again before the internet. And he was just he's like, yeah, I need 3 pieces for this fantasy book. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, this would be amazing. Yeah, Oh, actually, no, sorry, I digress. Sorry, he was like, got your portfolio, and it had 6 pieces, 3 in 2 different styles, 3 in each, basically. I had a charcoal, kind of artsy fartsy style, and a tight kind of ink, pen and ink style. And not really knowing what I was doing. I was using all the wrong tools, but I got, because there was no way to learn that shit. Like you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And basically, he called me up and said, "Hey, can you send a portfolio over of more work? I'd love this style. Can you send more samples?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can send like a dozen." He's like, "When do you need them for?" And he was like, "Oh, like how's Monday?" And this was like a Wednesday or a Thursday. I was like, "Yeah, no problem." So basically, I had nothing else in that style. I just basically spent the whole weekend just coming up with new stuff left, right, and center, like just figuring it out.
Fake it till you make it, right, buddy?
Yeah, and basically I just FedExed him like a book of like the samples. He loved it. Gave me a job for 3 pieces, and the pieces I did were not the best. I overdid it. Like I was so excited, I over rendered everything, like every blade of grass. Every leaf on that tree in the background.
Watch out, fantasy world! Here I come.
Oh yeah, fuck. And I remember I was so brokenhearted because when I got my comp copy of the book, like I did 3 pieces, 2 spot illustrations, and a full page spread. The full page was like a dwarf fighting a minotaur with some like elven archers in the background. Actually, I have the piece in the back. It's just so overly done.
You got to hang that up.
Oh god!
I'm going to use that gallery space.
My god! And basically, I was so heartbroken because like I saw the piece and he had cut it up, like not physically cut up the original, but he'd like taken copies of it and took out the dwarf and the minotaur, made that a piece, and he took out like the elf on the horizon and made that, like the detail was so tight and so crazy, like every section could be made its own piece. Like it was ridiculous, and I was like, oh my god. And then he called me up and he's like, we chatted a bit more. And he's like, "Sorry, I had to do that, man, but you just overdid that piece." Because it was funny because he was actually an artist in his own right, and he actually gave me some great tips as I worked for him.
Is that him there?
Huh? Yeah, that's Kevin. Yeah, that's him. He's a little bit older than when I worked for him, but that's him. But and it was funny. So like then I heard nothing for like a month and a half or something like that afterwards. And I was like, fuck, I fucked up the job. He's not going to hire me. And then I was still living at my dad's at this point. And I had my basement room, like your typical, I was a goth metal kind of kid. So I was like all my black and I'm in my dark basement room with my like flag.
What does man?
Yeah. And it was like, and sleeping until like 2 p.m. And basically he calls me up. I'm like half asleep. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, okay, so you up for another job? I'm like, what? Yeah, okay, yeah. He's like, I'll need 30 pieces by the end of this month. And that was like 20 days from the call. And I was like, okay. He FedExed over like a crate, like with exaggeration. Like he FedExed over like 50 books as reference material. And just like, I was like, holy shit. And I just like, it's like from that point, I haven't stopped from, art-wise, like I just went full tilt then and never stopped since, basically. Yeah. So, yeah, it was great, and it was just, and I was working so fast for him and creating so much, and there was such the one thing I appreciate with him, which I've had it with a few clients over the years, but there was such a trust in him that he let me do anything. At one point, by a year or 2 in, I was like, just drawing stuff left, right, and center, and he'd be writing paragraphs around it, like just building it all up. He'd be like, I need 10 different wizards, just do your thing and I'll work up the I'm like, okay. So it was a lot of fun. I couldn't have asked for a better first experience as a professional.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Little Slayer, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's some of my earlier work.
Oh shit. That was great, buddy.
Yeah, that's probably a few years in. But
really use the blacks there. Being a green.
I used to spot my blacks heavy. Like I was heavy into Mcdougall and Cheerio. There you go. But yeah, I loved spotting my blacks. And I kind of lost that a little bit with comics because I began to rely a little bit more on color, and I would love to return to a little bit more of the heavy
Paso,
Something. I got ideas. I got lots of ideas. I know. How about you, man? How did you make your jump start? Like, how did you?
So kind of not similar, but like like I said, I was finishing up that school, and I was looking at Sheridan. I applied with a portfolio. There was like this. So I was applying for animation at Sheridan. This is back in like 96, 95. And I got their little test, and away I went, and I actually got in.
Oh shit! Nice. So what was this test? What did you have to do for this?
Oh man, I just remember like there was a Mickey Mouse on there, and there was a bunch of other shit. Like it was no joke. The test was like, oh shit, I gotta like draw some objects. I gotta like, but I kind of have a knack for being able to draw from life. I don't know why. I just observational skills. Maybe I got problems because I stare at people all the time and objects. I'm just like, huh? What? Anyway, but I passed that test. They accepted me, and I'm just waking up in the morning. I get the letter in the mail, and I'm like, letters, haha. What are letters?
Yeah, right.
And first thing I say is like, oh, I got in. First thing my dad says, "Oh, you better get a job to pay for it." I'm like, come on, you didn't put any money aside for me? Nope, gotta go up there and earn it. And I'm like, ah. So, and I didn't really know about OSAP and stuff. And I was just like working at Donut Diner, and like I got in. I was like, shit, all right. And so that kind of sucked because I didn't bother going. It's okay because a lot of better stuff happened when I applied again the following year. I had Joe Vereen, as you know, buddy Blair McMath down in St. Catharines, and we applied together for Art Fundamentals.
Okay.
And the thing with Art Fundamentals at that time is when you completed the year, you had first dibs to kind of slide into the program of your choice.
And interesting. Okay.
You still had to do a portfolio, but you got first consideration over all of the people that applied. So that was how we got into, because after Art Fundamentals, we met a lot of great people. Arthur De La Cruz, you remember him?
Yeah. Oh, I remember Arthur. Yeah,
yeah. Art Fundamentals, I remember meeting him there. And,
okay.
I met Dax Gordine there.
Yeah.
Ron Davies, another guy I work with right now, an old school art guy. And Joe and Blair, and we would be in that class, and we were just terrors. Oh my god! Because we went in as a group of punks, and we had all our inside jokes, and we lived together, and we traveled together, and we were just these clowns. But we drew all the time, and so everyone was just like, "Well, how do you draw?" And I'm like, "I don't know. We're just drawing. Like we don't know what we're doing." And so like people were just like, "Whoa, you guys are drawing all the time." Well, yeah, well, don't you? But I guess that was kind of not what people were doing. I don't know. Like it didn't make sense to me because I was just drawing all the time. Because I met Joe a few years earlier, and him and his brother Mike Greens, who's also a phenomenal artist and was actually in Sheridan already ahead of us.
Oh, okay.
In animation, I met those two guys, and I was like, "What? Can we hang out and draw?" And Joe was like, "What do you mean hang out and draw? Like that's just what he did every day with Mike. He didn't think it was something that you do." And I'm like, no, can I come over and draw? I would do that with my friend Blair a little bit, but like when I met Joe, it was like we took it to the next level. So like I'd go over there all the time drawing, and then we applied together at Sheridan, and we all got into Art Fundamentals.
Yeah, nice.
We got this shit. We couldn't find an apartment at last minute, so we ended up staying at this like inn that would rent it to us. It was called the Pig and Whistle. It was in Oakville.
What?
Dude, we were like driving around all day looking for apartments, and we just couldn't find anything. And we found this shitty fucking inn. Actually, it was great because it was this bar, and at the back of it was this big hotel. And we're like, maybe we can rent here. So we ended up renting there for like 3 months until we found a townhouse in Oakville. This was in Burlington or Burloak or whatever, but from Burloak. But anyway, so we got through Art Fundamentals, became good fast friends with Dax, and I think when we had Dax on here for the first show, he talked about his dad being the comic book guy, right? And stuff, and I was like, "Whoa, dude, you got Jim Lee t-shirts? I want." Yeah, I'll wear that pink and black Wolverine shirt. I don't care. Anyway, but then we got into animation together, and that just was like shell shock because now you're entering a program where like to get in you had to have a good skill set. Like people applied from all over the world.
Yeah, for sure.
It was like the next level. So it's like whoa, and we kind of we had a little posse going in because we came from Art Fundamentals. We quickly made friends, and that's actually where I met Scott Hepburn.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So Scott Hepburn was in my class, and quickly became friends with him and with Trevor Bowman, Mike Roberts, Tim Shankweiler, all these guys that might come on the show one day.
Yeah, you never know.
They're all our guys, and Taylor, and a whole bunch of guys, right? And we had Bart down there too. Another guy was there, and actually that's where I met Craig Sellers, who actually works with me now at Digital Extremes as a concept artist.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, all these names that you're dropping, actually, all these guys are great artists. And they work in various fields in the arts, basically.
Superb artists. So
yeah.
So it was cool to suddenly have this like group of friends who were just all into artwork and who were really good and brought their own styles and they had their own portfolios and their own stories and work. And I was just like, I found my people. You know what I mean? And like
Mecca.
And then that fueled the like, let's keep drawing together and but then we also got into like hanging out. That's when the movie Swingers came out, so we were like we would dress up and like we go to like the like Goodwill.
I know the outfit.
Salvation Army, and we get like cheap suits. We couldn't afford anything. We just get cheap secondhand suits.
Yeah,
get all dolled up and go to like jazz clubs like the Hudson in Hamilton or the Reservoir Lounge in Toronto, which is still a fantastic bar to go to.
Yeah,
and we'd go there as these college punks and our little fucking crew and thinking we were all that shit and just like dancing and smoking cigars. Anyway, that still continues to this day.
It does, yeah. Nothing has changed really.
but now we have money. So.
Yeah, you can afford the nicer suit.
Thank you.
And the better cigars, basically.
But anyway, so college was great. I had some of the best experience of my life there. And, animation was amazing because I met some great artists, not only through friends, but some of the teachers were fantastic, especially the life drawing teachers. I had a lot of respect. Jerry Zeldin, unfortunately, is not with us anymore, but he was fantastic. Who was the other guy? Oh, there was another guy who our first class. He taught gesture. Okay. And the second guy was Werner Zimmerman. He's still active on Facebook, and he's one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite teachers of all time.
It's amazing what the right teacher will bring to the table, right?
Well, there was a moment in school. There was a moment in school there because like I said, all I cared about was life drawing. I just got really into life drawing. Like animation was cool. I could do it. I didn't mind it, but it was very technical and it's such dog work. It was just constant, like page after page. I'm like, whoa, this is a lot of work. It was cool when you were done. Yeah. You know, because you see it animated. And like I said, I met Scott Hepburn. He was always into comics, and we always hung out and we talk about comics. And Joe and I were trying to work on comics, Balto art, and all that shit was growing back then, right? And but I remember one time in life drawing class, I was like I said, I had kind of a knack for that stuff. And Werner pulled me aside into the hallway during a class, and he was just looking at some of my art, and he said, "Look, man," he's like, "people come here, they either have this or they have that. You have both." He's like, I would get out of here and just go learn in the world, you know, like, you know. And I was like, this is like, you know, I admire this guy, and like, we're all trying our best to get better. Yeah. He pulls me out and says it. Maybe he said it to every other student. I don't know. But in my mind, I was like, oh, he picked me and he likes what I'm doing. And anyway, so it was just amazing to hear a teacher just say, you know, because I don't think he cared for the animation side of it too. There was a lot of politics and stuff back then too. But no slight on Sheridan. It was still great for a lot of things. But like when he said that, I was like, that's pretty fucking cool, man. That gave me like this weird like, it's like you kind of, it's like out of a movie kind of shit, right?
Oh, for sure.
So anyway, so after second year, they have industry come into the school, right, for the third year at graduates. And it was a 3-year program back then. Now it's 4 years, but back then it was 3 years.
Same, program.
And the third years, every year they'd get, so all these companies would come and they'd kind of take a look at portfolios, and they'd walk by your desk, and your desk is where you could kind of set up your artwork, like a walk around in like a gallery section, right, of your desk. For sure. Joe got pegged. Because sometimes, if you were good enough, the companies would see the second year stuff and go, "Oh, who's this?" And so Joe got picked up by this whack animation company, and he came down running from the interviews. Guys, they're going to be in St. Catharines. You guys should do this. Like, we could all do this. They're looking for people. I'm like, sure. So I ran up there, showed them my shit, and they're like, yeah, come visit us and see. And that was it. So that's how I got into the industry. Like I started working at that studio with Joe and with Dax and with all the guys I went to school with. We got them all to come along. They're all living in St. Catharines. I'm like, this is wild. All of my friends from college are living in my hometown, working in the industry, and we started to make like decent money, right? Not like serious money, but like, oh wow, I'm not going to pay my OSAP off, of course, not yet. yeah. But like, it was great. That was a great time, and that led to like working at Sideshow, which was another animation studio. I was doing a lot of layouts and stuff. I was quick at doing background art, right? And a good friend of mine, Omar Dogan, he also attended Sheridan, and he was a year ahead of us in animation. Superb artist. You guys probably, some people might know him. He's a fantastic artist. Yeah. And he knew how fast I was at doing background art and stuff. And work was kind of getting annoying and drying up a little bit. And he was just like, well, hey, you want to help me do some background art for comic books? Because he was working first at Dreamwave, and then he started working at Udon Entertainment. This is back in like 2000, 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. So like I ended up not going back to finish my third year because I was making good money, and I was like, well, why go back and spend $11,000 for a year when I'm doing the job that I'm going to school for already, right? So
no, that's true. You know what I mean? Like if you have that in, why not, right?
Yeah. But then so Omar got me this gig. He's like, yo, you can draw backgrounds on this comic for me, and the artist is Alvin Lee, and who we all know, of course, a great, fantastic artist.
Was that Sentinel? No, what was that?
No, it was Deadpool.
Deadpool.
Yeah, the very first comic I worked on, and Deadpool wasn't really known back then, right?
No, not back then. No, not at all.
But yeah, so I started doing backgrounds, and my very first Marvel gig was on Deadpool, which is hilarious.
That's funny.
And then that just exploded. Like then I got exposed to all kinds of comic book work. You talk about working on like fantasy books and cards and stuff. I did a ton of those illustrations because Udon would just kind of get jobs and then give it to us, right? We all lived up there at Eric Ko's house because his parents were from Hong Kong, I think, and they were living in Hong Kong. And he had this mansion and a house there on.
Yeah, I remember going to that house once I was picking something up with somebody.
Oh, really?
And I was like looking around this weird, like I had like this basement I recall.
It was so weird down there.
Like a round couch or something.
Pool table, ping pong table, just chairs everywhere, and then just art tables. And we kind of stayed in there. There was no like you couldn't see the sun, so you didn't know what time it was. Work, right?
That's how we wanted it, basically.
Yeah. So we just worked a ton on that, and then Udon got the rights from Capcom. To make Street Fighter. So then, there's some Rob.
Oh yeah,
well done, Robbie. So I got into doing a lot. Of course, Capcom. Speaking of college, Capcom. The Capcom illustrations came out, which is I have that book right here. I have all that stuff, and this book right here. This changed our life right here. This book right there. Capcom illustrations.
Nice.
Joe and I got this from who got us this book? Oh, I can't remember where we got it from. But anyway, we had started our own game company called IRD1, by the way, back in then, and we almost went somewhere. But anyway, I had so much. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around. But anyway,
yeah, whatever.
That's where we first got the Capcom illustration book, and then that just took over. Joe and I were like, boom, we're drawing anime and Capcom forever now, and then. With luck would have it, years later, Udon gets the rights to Capcom, and now we're actual Capcom artists. It just kind of blew our mind, and I'm not saying I'm on the level of any of these Capcom art guys. I just was so cool to be able to work on those projects and try to be good and try to work on that. So that poster that Rob showed, that's one of my first pinups I did for the art of Udon's Art of Capcom book, which we have a couple of here. I got all those books right in front of me too. It's hilarious. So, but and then. We just kind of kept working on more and more titles. I think then I got the Sentinel book. I worked with Gail Simmons. I'm forgot her name. She's a Marvel writer.
Gail Simone?
Simone. There you go, Gail Simone.
Oh, okay.
So we worked together on Sentinel, and that was like my first project I wanted to work on, or I got to work on, where I was the artist, she was the writer, and I think Hepburn was inking it. I think Scotty Hepburn inked it. So I did that for a couple issues, but then I hated drawing kids, so I gave it to Joe. Real amateur, real pro over here. Here's your own Marvel comic book. Oh, I don't want to draw kids. So I pass it off to Joe. Oh my god.
Well, I actually remember that book. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I liked a lot of the covers I did. They still pop up at conventions from time to time. The issue 1, I think, I really enjoyed doing that first cover. And
yeah, was that like a kid, the Sentinel with a kid in his hand or something like that, if I recall? Yeah.
Justin Seaford or whatever his name is. Anyway, Hepburn knows about this because he ended up having to work on it too. It's like, I just handed off this gig to my friends. Go, no, you guys do this now. Anyway, I'm rambling here a little bit, but
I can see that how that MO still works for you these days.
It's all about delegation, man. But it's funny. So that led into all kinds of different work. And then around 2005, there it is. Yeah, good find, Rob. It's a little small, but yeah, I really enjoyed. I penciled and inked that cover myself, and really enjoyed how that worked out. And I think it kind of had a bit of a following, but. Again, I remember the book. I actually remember the book being popular. Like, people were talking about it and stuff like that. It was kind of cool. And then I did a lot of. One thing I did a lot of One thing I did do a lot of is I would help other artists finish their books.
Yeah,
that's how I met Kalman from the.
That's how. Yeah, because you did eye candy with Kalman, right?
Because he needed help finishing the pages. And
that's how I met. That's how I started hanging out with Kalman.
Well, wait a second. I met Kalman years ago, at Frozen Ink Studios. Logan Lubera.
Oh, I remember Frozen Ink. Holy shit,
that's where I met Kalman because he was touted as the new Travis Charest, which he loves hearing about every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, so the last stuff I started working on, I was helping, I forget his name now, was G.I. Joe. Doing a comic. And I did a bunch of issues helping this guy. That's when I met my wife, and I was drawing the pages there and inking backgrounds, doing the characters. And at one point around 2004, 2005, early, they're like, "We want you to just do the book now. Do you want to do the series?" Because I kind of figured out this guy's not figured out. Sorry, I did not figure it out. He was really good. I could mimic it enough that I think they're like, "Oh, this guy could probably do the book on his own." Yeah. I probably would have handed it off to Joe and Scott if
it's like, guys, I don't like drawing army stuff. You want to do this?
Or draw army stuff or kids. But at that time, I started applying as a concept artist for Silicon Knights, and so that's I decided to take that job.
And how did that
instead of comics?
How did that change come about? Like that's quite the shift.
I think it came down to that comics didn't pay very well.
That's true.
They're a ton of work, and things were kind of not even drying up. I had work, but I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, or if I was going to do comics, I just want to do my own stuff, right? Like we always talk about. So
for sure.
And concept art was becoming this kind of hot new industry. In video games, like, you can be like a conceptual art. Like Craig Mullins was just like rocking. Like, I don't know, back in the day, there was conceptart.org. Like, there's all these old school, even DeviantArt, I think, was around back then. Like, and people are posting concept art. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty fucking cool. Like painting environments and then Photoshop and drawing, and so you can use all the elements of like comics and stuff, but apply it to and I like designing things. Like I had a knack for like turning around objects, like because I did a bunch of like toy design for Eric Co at Udon, and I really like doing that stuff. And
excuse me.
So I had this chance meeting with Craig Sellers, who I mentioned I met. Joe and I were coming out of watching, what was it, The Incredibles or some show, one of those movies.
Yeah.
In the credits of that animated film was a girl we went to school with. And I just looked over to Joe going, damn, dude, like, what the fuck are we doing? You're in the same class. Like, I was just like, I got to start changing my ways, man. I got to start doing something different.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we walked out of that, and we were with this other friend of ours, Kevin Valentine, who's also a great artist. He started to return back to art. Good for you, Kevin. Anyway, and oh, shit, now we're getting into some DE work. Don't show that stuff yet. I'm jumping ahead there, Rob. But anyway, but like, I come out of the theater, and who's coming towards me is Craig Sellers with his good friend Mike Sebulge, right?
Okay.
And Craig starts talking to Kevin, going, "Hey, Kevin, Silicon Knights is hiring for concept art. You should put your portfolio in." And I kind of butt in, going, "Whoa, what? Oh, tell me more about this," because I just had this moment in the theater where I'm like, I got to change my ways. And I kind of heard about concept art, and then here comes Craig saying, "Hey, they're looking for concept artists." I'm like, "Oh, what?" So then Craig came over and he helped me put a portfolio together. A friend Papagiannis, Vasilios Papagiannis, another old school animation guy. He helped me with it too because he was working there, and those guys kind of got me into working at Silicon Knights. And then
interesting.
That's where I got my concept start. Yeah, that was also in St. Catharines. Like I could never leave St. Catharines, but great experience, and that's how I started in the concept art. So I'm going to stop there because I rambled there, because that's kind of the next chapter. But it was like that basically that all stemmed from Sheridan, who I knew, who I connected with, and it's so crazy how, as we all went out into the world to do art, we were all still pretty close, and we were all still trying to like help each other out and like, hey, this job's available. Hey, this place is hiring, you know. And it still continues to this day. But I think most of us now are kind of settled in something. But you know, it's that was a great experience, absolute great experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world. So.
Nice, man. That's awesome. That's quite the journey, basically.
Yeah, that's sorry I rambled so much.
Oh, whatever. That's fine. I don't care.
But
it's actually interesting because that makes an interesting jumping on point for myself career-wise. But as I mentioned earlier, I worked for RPGs, like role-playing games, but the traditional book role-playing games. So I worked for like Palladium Books with Kevin, and I did that for 1 or 2 years exclusively. He kept me so busy, and he was like a great employer. He flew me down to conventions. He invited me down. Like he was actually kind of cool. He was in Detroit area. So I could easily drive down in about 5 or 6 hours if I wanted to.
Yep.
And so he'd be like, "Hey, I got some extra tickets for a U2 concert. You want to come on down?" I'd be like, "All right," just driving down. So he truly became a friend, as well as like my employer. He was super awesome and so giving with his knowledge, and you know, just helpful along the way. So. But obviously, as an artist, you always want to expand and try new things. And, you know, I loved working with him, but I also kind of wanted to, like, you know, draw different things that maybe he, you know, his game didn't kind of allow me to do, basically.
Right.
I mean, and his game was pretty expansive. So it allowed me to do a lot of, like, cyberpunk, post-apocalypse, monsters. Like, there wasn't much that I couldn't draw in his world.
Right.
But I after about 2 years working exclusively with him, I started to like kind of reach out to other potential clients. Steve Jackson Games, where I worked on a series called Innomine, which was like an angelic apocalypse series. And then Kevin also resurrected his TMNT role-playing game, so I worked a little bit on that.
TMNT, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, it was funny actually because they were doing a resurgence at the time. And they asked me to, it never got used, or maybe it did, I can't recall, but to do designs for a female turtle.
Oh, no way.
For their cartoon. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
That's
I don't know if that actually ever got used or not. I can't recall. But yeah, so I started to mix it up. And the cool thing about Kevin was, as I mentioned earlier, he was also an artist. So he loved comic books. That's where he wanted to get his own start. So he actually applied to, you know, different Marvel and those guys before he started his own company doing RPGs, which was one of his other loves. But he always loved comics, so a couple of his gaming books had these kind of like 3 or 4 page backup stories sometimes in them, right, by other artists.
Yeah.
So I kind of reached out and said, listen, I want to do comics. That's, you know, I love storytelling. I love, you know, I've been doing, by that point, Butternut Squatch, which I mentioned earlier, for years online. And I kind of just wanted to, like, he started putting out a quarterly magazine kind of about his world, his game, and all that stuff. So I said, hey, do you mind if I do an installment every issue for maybe like 10 issues or 8 issues or something like that? And he was like, yeah, that'd be great. Like, he's like, I can't offer you much for that, and but whatever, the pay was nominal, but I got to write and draw my own essentially graphic novel in pieces.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I look back on that thing now and I still love it. Like it just so much of my heart and soul went into it. And it's very rough around the edges. Yeah, this was a cover I did.
That's great. I love that.
That was one of the first things I actually also digitally colored. Oh, speaking of Scott Hepburn, one of your former colleagues is here.
Oh,
but so anyways, yeah. So this was for the collection when they kind of put it all in one volume back in 2000. I want to say 7. But I did it around, I think it was 1999 or so, like around there somewhere. And it was great. It allowed me the opportunity to, like, just stretch my wings doing comic books. And also, in a way, my hope it was build up a portfolio to actually then take around to Marvel, DC, and all these other companies, right? And as you were mentioning, you were kind of hunting around trying to get work for gaming company. I mean, for video game companies.
Mm-hmm.
Around that time, I was also doing work for like a lot of the CCGs were popular, like Wizard of the Coast.
Yep.
Which they're still popular.
I worked with them. Yeah.
Yeah, but
was it like White Wolf Publishing? I think.
Yeah, White Wolf Publishing as well did stuff, and so I worked for all these companies, but the thing was, a lot of rates were starting to go down in the industry.
Yeah.
Because of video games, because video games were taking the lion's share of the audience, and then people were moving away from RPGs over to video games. So like rates were getting lower, and I was like, I don't like this. So I decided to make, and I was, and to be honest, after like a decade or 8 to 10 years of working on this content, you kind of you I don't want to say you get bored of it, but you've done it.
Try something else, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. So. I did this graphic novel that Rob showed the cover of, Machinations of Doom, I think, and we actually have it in the Raid store because I still have copies of it left. But so I did my first con my first San Diego con in 1999.
Damn.
Yeah, I think it was 99. That sounds about right. I just finished this graphic novel. And I took it around shopping, trying to get like work, and I didn't get. Unfortunately, I got some good, bites here and there.
Yeah.
I actually, and I can't remember if that was the same con. Oh no, that wouldn't be till years later. But nothing was coming my way, like zero. Like I was going around trying to get. And I got some great reviews from like Karen Berger. I can't remember his name. Is it Mike Wagner from Dark Horse Comics? So I got a lot of great feedback, but not any work. And so I came back, and this comic that Rob and I were doing, Butternut Squash, as I mentioned earlier. And in and around that time, I'd also started hanging out with more Toronto. I'd moved to Toronto by this point, and I started hanging out with other local artists, Mike Cho, Jay Bone, Andy Belanger, and a few of these other guys. And it was actually great because Mike Cho was doing this kids book called Max Finder for Owl Kids, which is a children's magazine up in Canada, which I read as a kid. And he was looking to kind of leave the series, which he'd been doing for about 3 or 4 years, and he wanted to stretch his wings. So he's like, he was like, I think you'd be a great fit. Why don't you send over Butternut Squash, which was hilarious because Butternut Squash was centered around coffee, dick jokes, and like it was just like you're not your child friendly comic book. But I sent it in and ended up getting the job.
Nice. So
I transitioned from all this gaming stuff over into kids books, so doing much more of a cartoonier kind of style, lighthearted, way more like you'd see in the Sunday funnies I grew up. Kind of my default style, to be honest with you. Like I'm more cartoony by nature. It wasn't until later where I kind of began going more realistic with a lot of my work.
Right.
But I transitioned into this children's book, and it was the one cool thing about this children's comic strip was it was monthly, and kind of like you, I guess, maybe getting the job with the companies doing the concert art, it was a monthly paycheck, which I'd never had before up until that point. Like I never lacked for work, but it was never a steady paycheck in the sense.
Well, that's the same thing with Udon, right? Like I have my hands in everything because everyone, comic artists tend to be kind of late or behind, so they always need someone to come in, help with backgrounds. I worked on Vampy, was it?
Vampy. I remember Vampy. Yeah.
Kevin Lau, I think, was the artist. I did all the backgrounds in that, and I did a ton of work. And what was great because money would just come in from all these different sources, right? I'd suddenly get a huge paycheck because I'm like, whoa, I've never seen this kind of money ever.
Yeah, exactly, right?
it all landed. But I mean, Eric was always great too. You'd always front you if you were behind or needed something. So I was like, oh, that's great. But like, yeah, man, it was crazy.
Yeah, and so the cool thing this offered was now I had a reliable paycheck that I knew would show up every month without delay for actually a better rate than I ever made in because you're getting magazine rates now, not RPG or comic book rates. So I literally would work for
advertising money.
Yeah, like I would literally work for 10 days a month, maybe 15 days on this comic book, make my necessary overhead, and the rest of the month I could, take on other jobs, whether it was advertising work or maybe try to do some comic book work or my webcomics, which would have been around 2007 when we started TX. So that allowed me the time to do things like that and explore other more creative outlets, but knowing that I had that kind of paycheck coming in, allowing me, and not like a paycheck that I had to hustle hard for. Like it was a relatively easy gig. Like I enjoyed it. It was simple, and it just allowed me to go now I got this out of the way, and the rest of the 2 weeks of the month I can work on webcomics. Yeah, I would take on odd jobs like you mentioned, inking other artists or working on other. Yeah, there you go, Max Finder Mysteries, right? So way more cartoony, but it was just it was storytelling, it was comics. And then on the side, I would do an odd issue for Marvel, or I would do an odd issue for DC, and get that kind of work slowly. But nothing ever bit in comics, so it was always nice to have this steady paycheck. And then also doing magazine work and advertising work, which I also loved. It kind of flexed other muscles that I loved working on. I loved doing that kind of stuff, and. So yeah, it was just a great way to kind of explore new avenues, try new things stylistically, play with computer coloring, which was just kind of, on the happening, and all those programs are coming out. So it was a great way to learn on the job as well, right? Yeah. So it was super cool and super helpful.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I still continue. Hey, Hepburn, live in stereo. Yeah, but I still continue to I still continued working for Udon for many years.
Oh, interesting.
In fact, even probably up until last year or something, I probably did a pinup for one of their swimsuit issues or something, right? Because awesome. I did a 4-page Street Fighter. Darkstalker, because I did Darkstalker comics with them too. That's another thing I got.
Yeah, I remember Darkstalker. Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because when I went to Silicon Knights, I stayed there for about 2.5 years. Jumped ship to go to Capcom Mobile in Burlington.
Oh shit!
They let me go 4 months later, even though I did all the artwork that this other guy was not doing. Anyway, they let me go, but he was friends with the boss, so whatever. Then I met a couple people there that went to Digital Extremes. Down the road, they reached out here and there, but I went to Silver Birch in Toronto. I went to Trans Gaming in Toronto. So when I was up there, and that's when I met you around 2008. Well, I met you before, but when I was in Toronto, I was living in Toronto for a couple of years, or a year and about a year with my wife, and that's when I was like, oh, hey, I'm doing online comics. Do you guys want to? Is it okay if I join? Oh, look at this.
Oh, the early cons. Yeah, that would have been. Oh, man. I probably would have been early 2000s, I guess, because Rob and I actually started doing the con circuit with Butternut Squash, like way before comics or anything. This is where we went and gained our audience.
Rob even had hair then, eh?
I know a little bit.
Where's your belly? Where'd that belly come? Where's that belly? It's not even there anymore.
Oh man, but
it's what was I saying? Oh, that's when I met you, and I was like, hey, I'm doing a weekly comic. Is it okay if I join TX? I got to meet the guys there.
Yeah, because Hepburn we were sharing a studio with Hepburn too.
Yeah, and so I started like coming up. I started like hanging out with you guys more, working on TX comics every week. Going to conventions with Udon, but then you guys would be there, so I started to kind of just get involved in the comic book community more, right? And and that's kind of when I became part of Raid. Since then, like 2008, I've been part of it in one way or another, and then around jobs dried up in Toronto, and I was just sick of it because it's so expensive, and I was like, all right. So we moved back home to my wife's house. We lived there for a full year at her parents' house. We had to start over. We moved back to St. Catharines where I met her, and we stayed at her parents' house for a year. And I was just doing freelance. That's when I was working on the Darkstalker comic. Actually, was at my wife's house. And then I was doing like some other game work, like Secret Seasons, like some concept art for that and stuff, and keeping my ear to the ground for any concept art gigs. I applied at Edmonton at. Is it Ubisoft out there, or
I don't know.
What's the company? I can't remember. But I applied there. I thought for sure I was going to get that job, but didn't, thankfully, because Edmonton's cold. After a year at Annette's, at my wife's place, parents' house, my friend Mike Sabolge, the guy that I worked with at Silicon Knights, the same people that mentioned it in the theater, walking up to me. Who I'm good friends with and now still work with, he reached out saying, hey, they're hiring a concept here in London. And so my wife was like, I don't want to go to London. I was like, well, my work's drying up. We have to get out of debt. We have to start over. So we had to basically start all over. We came out here 11 years ago. Actually, what day is the page? July?
It says the 12th.
Tomorrow, 11 years ago, I started work at Digital Streams.
Wow. Yeah. Well, happy anniversary.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? July 13th, 2010, I started work at Digital Streams and haven't looked back. It's been an amazing.
That's crazy, man.
Career.
I remember when you made that move. Yeah. We weren't as close as we were these days, but our friendship kind of grew over the years after we met at TX.
We started to go a lot more conventions together, travel buddies. We had a lot in common. We had big ideas and dreams for Raid, and I wasn't
and ourselves and all our ideas.
I was always in your ear, and we were always kind of plotting and planning things of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do this? We should try and do this, and and it's been a tumultuous last 10 years for Raid, but I think we've definitely come out on the other side of things. But
I think it's been a fun journey. Like I have no regrets.
Well, especially now, it's like we're doing all these.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm excited for what is around the horizon, and the stuff that we've pulled off. Even like it's funny what's available now too, and like the things that we're. TX, the original logo,
Well, that's where Carl Kerschel
started.
With his abominable Charles Christopher.
Yeah, and he just had a.
Yeah, they're just at the final 48 hours of his Kickstarter for the third book.
Yeah, and he just crested 100K for it. Just like amazing. And that was just him hanging out with us, going, "Hey, mind if I?" Kind of like you. He's like, "Yeah, do you mind if I do this webcomics thing too?"
Actually, side note, I actually managed to finish a pinup.
Oh, the piece?
So he seemed happy about it, so I'm curious if we'll see it soon.
I failed on that regard. I have to apologize to Carl.
I was struggling with what to do, and I finally came up with something, and I think it seems like he liked it, so we'll see how it goes.
Nice.
But so I guess that kind of takes us all the way up to like Raid. Right, like
to a degree, yeah. I mean, I pretty much after the kids book, I was like always doing conventions for like the Butternut Squash and Kookaburra and Transmission X and So I was always doing conventions, and I was.
But you're
always,
still like, but you were Raid, right? Because you met those guys and joined.
I joined Raid in it must have been 2006.
Yeah.
And TX Comics actually started before Raid in discussion with Eric Kim, actually.
Eric.
Yeah, and
Another guy that I went to Art Fundamentals with.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
It's a tight community here.
And it's weird the people you meet and still see around. It's crazy. It's pretty cool.
But then when I joined Raid with Chip Zdarsky, who I'm now working on Stillwater with, and basically, but for the years I was just doing conventions, just trying, hawking butternut squash. Rob, our comic actually got optioned a couple times for cartoons and different things. Nothing ever, came of it, but it was like cool to, someone gives you money for, this like weirdo, lame brain, wacky, crazy idea you got going on, right? And we had great fans, like, and it's weird because like I kept trying to get, because it seemed like the goal was placed in front of me in a weird way because of the people I was surrounded by to do like Marvel and DC, where those were the kind of pillars of success, and I think to a degree still are, but less so these days. Like there's so much more.
Well, they have that pedigree, that history, right?
Yeah, but back then, like the indie scene was there, but like you couldn't make a living off of it like you can today.
Yeah. Doing
indie comics for like with Boom or with Skybound
or
with Image, right?
The internet is taken off.
Yeah, right.
Mean,
so like
helps everything.
So I mean, the cool thing was I met all these great writers while doing these conventions. So I met like Catherine Immonen and Stuart Immonen and B. Clay Moore and. Actually, Scotty Young. Actually, the way I met Scotty Young, he was a fan of butternut squash, and Rob and I did San Diego, where we had our first issue of the comic, like printed comic of butternut squash, that came out through Speakeasy in their last days. Like for an indie comic, I think we sold or had pre-orders for about 4,000 to 5,000 copies, which back then was actually impressive for an indie comic. And so Scotty was a fan of butternut, and he came by our table and picked up like a T-shirt. And like I kind of knew who he was, 'cause I remember seeing some of his artwork at Marvel a little bit back then, and like it was just funny just think back how long I've known that guy now. But so all these great people I would meet, and then I would start working. But like I said, I would only get odd jobs in comics. Like I would ink Calman on a job, or I get this weird backup story. And then I would get a call from like Catherine Immonen, from an editor at Marvel or an editor at D saying like, B. Clay Moore wants you to draw this, or Scotty Young wants you to draw this comic that he's writing or whatever, and they'd be like, we don't know who you are, but but I would hand in the work and they'd be impressed. They'd be like, oh shit, okay, we didn't know who you are, but you pulled it off. This is great, But nothing ever, still, like, I never got a regular series. It wasn't until I did Tale of Sand, which kind of was like this weird... Yeah.
Awesome.
That was like...
Was that a little Eisner-award logo?
Yeah. Well, it was funny because it's like, I got this offer to do this book, and like I think I mentioned this in one of our other podcasts, like I had to audition for it, and I kind of beat out the other artists based on my interpretation. But it was like I remember when the editor, like, I was like, what are you looking for? And they kind of just sent me a smattering of my own art back at me. Like, and they sent me butternut squash. They sent me some of my Marvel work, and they sent me all this other. I was just like, okay, you want like everything I do mashed up in this one book? Okay. Yeah. But it was like, God bless them. That company and my two editors there. Stephen and Chris gave me...
Steven's awesome.
Yeah, Stephen Christie, who you've met. Both these guys just let me go free reign on this book. And I never had that opportunity to do what I did on Tale of Sand since the graphic novel I did for... Kevin at Palladium Books, the sci-fi one, my first one.
Oh wow, yeah.
So because it was like this kind of unhinged freedom to do whatever I wanted. There was no one telling me what I couldn't do, which I felt like all the odd jobs I got at Marvel and DC, because I was kind of like having to jump through hoops and press these editors who didn't know who I was. I kind of felt constrained, right? So with this thing, I kind of just went no holds barred. I went crazy. I just did whatever came to mind.
That's beautiful, man.
And it was funny because I remember like the day it was, or the week before it was about to get released, Stephen Christie was like, because back then it was through a smaller company called Archaea, which later got bought out by Boom. But I remember Stephen Christie kind of just leaning over to me going, this is the most money we've sunk into any project at this company. So if this thing doesn't work out, man, we're tanking. I was just like, what the fuck? So like, I was just sweating bullets. I was like, oh my God, I hope people like this. I don't know what, like, you know what I mean? You're just like, it's just like you jumped off of a cliff and you hope someone's going to catch you. And luckily, it went well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man.
You know what I mean? But it was funny, not up until that point. Then, like, after that, all these companies, which I was trying to get steady work with, started calling me because, I guess maybe they saw the unhinged me, the one that, working how I wanted to work. But
drawing is feeling.
Yeah, I mean, just drawing from the gut, basically, right? And it got me work doing stuff for Marvel, doing X-Men, Spider-Man, like all these great properties, which I've been lucky to work with such great writers as like Lemire, Jason Aaron, all these guys, and it's been truly a blessed career, just doing all these different stories over the years and having fun with it, and but yeah, it's amazing where art will take you. At the end of the day, like it's such for a guy who didn't know what the hell he was gonna do.
For sure.
Let's hope Mama did. Let's hope Sarah.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, it's been pretty wild, man. Like Digital Extremes, we worked on a bunch of different types of games and stuff, and nothing really, like, we had some, like, The Darkness was probably one of our more better titles. More better, that's good English. And they did some BioShock stuff, but, like, we had a kind of a string of so-so games and stuff come in, and then we just took a chance on Warframe, and man, like, it's night and day now. Like, what we're able to do and make whatever we want to a degree, right? And it's super successful. Speaking of which, we have our TennoCon, which is this Saturday. If
nice.
Interested.
And that's like an online convention?
It's an free online. Yeah, we usually have at the convention here in downtown London, Ontario, we have in-person convention, but obviously with COVID we can't. So I think we did about 3 or 4 of them, or 3 of them. And then the last 2 years have been online. So it's a full day of like events and talking about the game and reveals. I'm actually doing a panel, I think, at about 2:00 on Saturday with some other artists talking about some of the some stuff in game and answering some questions from fans. And but yeah, like the game has opened up. It's just changed our life completely here, and it's been such a great opportunity to work on so many different. Like types of work in the game, like not only the concept but all the design work, and then also like I've had the good fortune to do. Rob showed it earlier, like these Prex cards, illustrations, and I've done a bunch of those. I think I've done about 15 of those, and that's been a real eye opener for myself as a style exploration and something to kind of. There you go, TennoCon 2021. Give it a look, everybody. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And the game's free, so there's no reason not to be playing it. Completely free. But and it's an amazing game. But the whole experience has been amazing because it's also allowed me to work and still do comics and work and be part of Raid, and even with Udon for many years too, doing stuff for Udon constantly. And it's just been such a life-changing experience, and I couldn't be more thankful to them and that. But it's funny because that job just came out of nowhere, and then who knows, right? We happen to the game could have done nothing, but for some reason it just connected with people, and we grew upon the community and the connection with people and fans. And I think that's something that I think we're trying to implement even with Raid. It's like, how can we connect with our fans? Even doing this is a similar thing. Connecting
it totally
with people. Building awareness, of like what we want to do. Like ultimately we want to do a lot of our own things. We have 3 anthologies out. We're talking about a 4th. Like
Yeah, exactly.
all kinds of stuff. We got big plans coming up soon. So
yeah, and it's funny. Like all the knowledge has caught up. All the opportunity, the things available for us to do things.
Yeah.
Because I remember a lot of the stuff we wanted to initiate back that we're doing now, we actually wanted to initiate way back in the early 2000s, and back then it just wasn't feasible. Like from like printing a book, unless you were printing in China somewhere, you couldn't afford to do it. And even then, compared to now, it's like it was expensive. And then like also just like bit payments and sharing things online, it's just like a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing to have and be able to do this stuff now.
Yeah. I don't know. As far as like our background, I think we kind of covered a lot of it. It's like I'm trying to think if there's anything. Like, sure, there's all kinds of little stories here and there. And
there's all kinds of little things probably could go on about. Like,
it's funny because it's like it's been a great life so far, right? And it hasn't come without like its troubles and its stumbling blocks, of course. But like, I mean, the main thing is just the love of art and now we have this great studio where we can actually like share it with more people and stuff and get more people involved and like
no, it's very true. It's been a wild ride. It's just a great community too, and just good to have it with good people. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, hang on. I can rod. Cheers, buddy. Exactly.
Yeah.
People indeed. I know we talked about like what are some other things we're into outside of art, right? Like
we were rambling on so much about the beginnings. Oops, I'm dropping shit here. My pen, my expensive pen. It's funny because like for me actually it took a while because I don't know if you experienced this at all, but I know for a while like having art as your full-time job kind of took over so much. I lost a lot of my extracurricular activities of like I used to do a lot of model building.
Well, they said modeling. I'm like, oh, really?
Like model building, different things, and like stuff I used to love doing, or like I have to kind of rediscover, to do things, so like, one of the things I love doing is, like I ride my motorbike and I love working. Funny enough, going back full circle to my dad, like
I love
working with my hands. Like I love tinkering with things, doing the renovations here at the studio
Same here.
Like it's funny, these things that, like younger me was like, I don't want to fucking do this, Dad. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
But, even as a kid, I would take apart, like motorized toy cars and see how they worked and put them back together, or maybe not. or make something new out of them. Like I'd make some kind of new robotic thing or whatever it might be. So it's actually been fun, despite the chaos of the past several years. Like it's been fun to actually get back into, mechanics and like working on my bike, but also the physicality of building a studio and learning and refining skills in how to like do woodwork or do tile work or plumbing, electricity, all that kind of stuff. It's just this really cool itch that I get to scratch that I hope will serve me, when I, want to reno my house or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what I mean? Or try something different, right? But, so that's the kind of stuff I love traveling. I mean, that's the one.
Oh, yeah, man.
That's the one thing that I miss so much from all this COVID crap. I know it's been a
so cool about conventions. It's like it was like a work trip, but it was also cool. Not only you hanging out with all your friends and colleagues, you also expanding your network of people that you not you're not there to for jobs. You're not trying to like get hookups for jobs. It's more about like you just networking in a friendly, great way, and you're like, and it just would lead to so many other things, and you see them at the next convention.
Yeah, and even like fans too. Like you see, like I do Chicago up until COVID. I did Chicago every year. Actually, it's funny because COVID. Chicago was the last con I did before COVID. So in 2020, we managed to sneak in.
I was going to try and go to
the
that.
Chicago show, and then the pandemic exploded globally, right? So that was the last show, and it might be, if things work out, maybe the second or third show I do this year, because they've moved it to December, and I'm talking about going there. So, but it's great because there are so many people I would see regularly there.
Yeah.
Like not just colleagues, but also fans and people who you've, been going to the city for a decade or whatever it might be, and they're it's like an extended family, right?
Yeah.
That you only see on the road though.
Yeah.
I
love Chicago, man. Go Bears. Yeah. Go Bears.
The food there, the people, the city. Oh, it's such a great place.
I really look forward to going back there, man. Big.
Yep. Maybe you should try to come with me.
I got to get this Arden thing out the door, right?
Yeah, that's true. You got to do that.
There's lots of work coming our way.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be a busy year.
With the plans we got, right? But
busy year. Oh, man. I don't know what I'm drawing
exciting,
here.
So. What's that?
I just keep drawing and erasing today. I'm not in a zen of art here today, but...
yeah, no, it's...
How about you? What outside of drawing? What kind of?
Well, I like you guys know my Warhammer fascination.
Yeah,
big Warhammer nerd. Eldar and vampires and.
Mm-hmm. And so you paint the miniatures too.
Well,
the guys with it.
They're coming.
They're coming.
Anthony will be like, "No, he never paints." I'm like, "Yeah, I got stuff to do, man." So I'm not a writer. I can't sit around and have all this time on my hands. I'm joking.
Oh, yeah. Mom, I actually did see that, Sarah. That was awesome.
But I don't know. I like outside of drawing. I love playing soccer. There's martial arts I'm involved in, and
was it kendo you do?
No. It's called Daito Ryu Aikibujutsu. It's alone.
Oh.
It's where a lot of current martial arts, Japanese martial arts, stem from. But
okay.
Cool. No, I'm sorry, Rob. Writers are great. I'm just making fun of Anthony. Making fun of Anthony because he's always got a comment about my army of gray miniatures that are not painted. I'm like, I know, I'm getting there. So, but no, I don't know, man. Like just and then just spending time with friends, it's I'm trying to. My wife and I try and do as many hobby nights as we possibly can. She has her own craft. I try to do my own.
Oh, nice. What kind of? So what would be your craft as she crafts her craft?
Well, I guess it's more art. I like getting back into painting, oil painting, and.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you got some killer stuff actually.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I like that's something that's you talk about the future and where I want to go and maybe kind of. Work towards. It's I just want to paint still lifes and
you'd be the guy on the lake in Slovenia painting the the castle.
Slovenia. I want to live in Piran.
Oh, Piran now.
Oh, Ljubljana. That's all in Slovenia, man. Ljubljana, Piran. But anyway, so yeah, I think what are we at here? 150. Not bad, buddy. Good long.
We rambled on. I mean, we really got to a few of the other things, but that's future episodes.
You probably bored any of the people listening.
Yeah, I know. They're like, oh, no. Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I think it's been a wild. I mean, this Makeshift Mondays came from the fact that we're we need to get more stuff done, right? There's a lot of things.
It's actually nice to just draw something that's not for work. I love what I do, but
same here, bud.
It's actually nice to actually draw something just because I don't really keep. I don't keep a sketchbook. I don't keep things as I used to, but this is kind of my digital version of that.
Yeah.
To get things out of my system, explore things, try new things, hopefully. And the first few has been just kind of getting the rust out of the joints for me, these first few episodes.
Totally.
But I hope to actually kind of use it to grow and experiment more and, use it to kind of as a vessel to further my storytelling,
Yeah. I know for me, I have so much I got to get done for Arden, and Sheldon, the writer for Arden, who hopefully we'll have on here one day.
Yeah.
Him and I have a lot to plan. We're just waiting for TennoCon to wrap up, and then we have a few big sessions planned. What we're going to do and what we're going to release, and I'm excited to get to that because that's kind of, Rob, if you want to show parts of that, sure, buddy. I built. He's going to show a pic of the.
Oh yeah! Speaking of a handyman here,
this is the bar I built in my house. I was like, I'm a big fan of making cocktails and having good times with my friends. So
is that us in the mirror? Is that Sheldon
that's
and
Ramon and
myself? I think, yeah.
That's just part of it. So.
Rob's in the shop, but he's lower.
That's the Black Wolf Lounge, right there.
We should actually here's a quick way to wrap it up. Now that we have the Black Wolf Lounge up, people are going, what the fuck is Black Wolf and Calavera Kid? Where did this stem from?
Oh.
So maybe this is a good way to wrap up today's episode as we're near 10 o'clock for the evening. How's that sound?
Where do they come from? Well, you start.
So when I graduated from Sheridan, everybody had to make business cards. That was like one of the things that you're like, what are you going to do? What are you going to call your studio? What's this? What's that? And so, as I mentioned earlier in our podcast, I was kind of a gothy / industrial, like heavy metal kid. And so I wore a lot of black, a lot of chains, and a lot of spikes, studs, but I had these boots that I used to wear, and there were like these buckles on the sides going up my calf, and each buckle was a skull. And my dad would always be like, "What's with this black and the calaveras?" Is what is skull in Spanish. He's like, "What's this with all these calaveras everywhere?" Because he hated the color black, and he hated skulls because in his hometown, all the widows would wear black all the time. So like because it's just old people in this town, like everybody would be in black and death, and he just hated all that. So like, it didn't help that I was like the artist's son now dressed in black, and you know what I mean. So I was like, Dad, what's that word you keep yelling at me again? He's like, what, calavera? I'm like, yeah, that's a cool word. I'm like, so, and basically, I named my studio Calavera Studio, and I made a logo actually, which I'm wearing now actually. This is my and Calavera. Oh, there you go. We can go this way, like if we can focus here. And Calaverada, which is an extension of the word, means madcap or jester in Spanish. So that's why my skull has the jester's cap on it.
Nice.
And that's why I named my studio Calavera Studio. and I made the logo. This was on my business card when I graduated. But when I started working gaming, one of the fun things I did in gaming when I worked in gaming, which I kind of abandoned in comics because it didn't. The opportunity wasn't there, or the deadlines kind of prevented it. I'm not sure what, but I used to work in a lot of like Friends and different things into the artwork, and I'd always put up wanted posters for the Calavera Kid.
Okay.
So there'd always be. That's right, Sarah. So like throughout the RPGs, there'd always be these wanted posters with this like logo of a cowboy, wanted the Calavera Kid, blah blah blah, And I did it for years, and then people started to ask for like T-shirts with the logo and gaming and stuff like that. And so that's kind of, and so when the internet first started to rise up to what it's become, we all had to, back then it was like cool to like you don't want to use your real name. It was like this thing like, oh, you don't want people to know who you really are. So Calavera Kid was my online handle for a lot of things. Like Twitter, all my social media up until that point. This is before Instagram hit and stuff like that. And it was actually funny, speaking of Scotty Young earlier, because Scotty Young was, he wanted to help promote me on something. I can't remember what it was. And he's like, Ramon, what the fuck's the stupid name you have on? he's like, make it your real name. Like, just make it your, I was like, yeah, but someone took my real name on Twitter already. And he's like, well, just put the in front of it, like the Mike Norton, just do the Ramón Perez. And I'm like, okay, fine. And so I abandoned it at that point because it became more in vogue to have your real name on your social media. So it just came that you know, and then that's where the name came from. And I kind of always used it for my own little nuances and things like that. So it's still out there. It's just it's a little bit more secretive.
The Black Wolf. I don't know. I was one of the images I was working on for Arden. John Smith was being.
Yeah, pretty much it. That's right, Ramón Perez.
There was a character in there, and it's kind of the opposite of one of these other characters, Makoto. And I was like, oh, this could be the Black Wolf. She could be the White Wolf, or something like that. And I was drawing the character, and I was like, started to kind of make him look like me. Like had a beard and like the eyebrows, balding. And then I was building the bar. And I'm like, what am I going to call the bar? Because I built a bar in my old house called the Dragon's Keep.
Yeah, I remember that. Like,
okay, now we renovated a whole room. It's on the main floor. I'm like, I can't, like, the Dragon's Keep was fun, kooky for the basement part. This is like a real room now. It's like, and I love dragons. I love elves. I love wolves. And I like these are the kind of the like birds and stuff. Like they're all kind of the key figures in my art and story. I'm like, I can't call it dragon again. And I can't say it's something elven because my wife will be like, I'm like, oh, but wolves. Maybe the Black Wolf Lounge. And then we painted the room black and then it tied into this thing. And then we were playing some role-playing game. Sheldon was running, and I just called myself the Black Wolf, and then it just stuck. I'm like, screw it. It's self-proclaimed. Whatever. I know it's nerdy, but I'm like, I love it. And then I looked up Black Wolf, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's cool. They're like wolves in the nature. And I'm like, that's me. There's nothing cool. Yours actually sounds cool. Like you have a cool history. I have not.
I just like how like Eric didn't tell anybody. It's funny. Here's a side story to Eric's bar building. He didn't tell anybody about this bar, but he would just be like he'd constantly sign all his emails or Twitter or in our Slack group with this like little black dot and a wolf. And we'd be like, "What are you talking? What's going on?" He's like, "You'll know soon. You'll know soon. You'll know."
I love surprises, and I love surprising people for my own personal.
Yeah, and then it wasn't until like we went to visit Eric for a little trip.
My birthday
last year. Yeah, your birthday. That's right. And and he was like, guys, welcome to the Black Wolf Lounge. And we're like, oh my god.
You know what, Sarah? Probably will make some
yeah, probably, maybe.
We'll make some shit.
We'll make some shit. Don't worry. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, no, that's where that's stupid. And then I'm like, I got the and so like, I was growing my hair really long, and I tried to like make it look. It's like,
oh god.
So for the role playing game, the first time we played, I called myself the Black Wolf, and I had this all out like this. And I had longer hair, and I had it all like back, like I looked like this wild wolf, and I'm like, the Black Wolf is here. And I was like, oh god, there's nothing cool about it. I gotta keep it.
Oh man, that's amazing.
But anyway, I think that's probably it, buddy. Like,
that's it. I think we're cutting it there.
Yeah. Rob, thanks so much, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Thanks for poking fun at us too.
Yelling us with our nonsense. We got 21 comments. Another shout out to Mama Deadhead again.
Thanks she's been awesome. She's been here all the time.
Support. And Jamira's. Am I saying that right? Jamira?
Yeah. And we got some great guests coming up in the weeks to come, so we're excited to have some other people on here. But I think we're going to do this every so often, I think. Just have like a one-on-one chat and hopefully get more of the audience involved too, like other artists, maybe writers chatting about process and different things. And
we're gonna. I mean, this is going to evolve and mutate into its own thing organically. No pressure because we didn't want to. This isn't going to be a job for us. This is something we want to do, right? So
it's just something to have like a nice stretch our wings and do what we want to do, basically, right?
It'd be cool, like we started at the start of this, like. You know, I'll do an Arden expose, or you'll do a Kookaburra or something, or like, and maybe even take like. I know one thing I've done at work a few times is I did a talk about my art journey as far as like how I got into concept art, right? And so I showed a lot of my earlier work to now what I took and where I got to and how I got there, and as just just as like anything to help people, maybe.
Yeah, no, I've done a bunch of seminars over the years
Yeah.
about storytelling, and I used to run inking classes as well. So all this stuff is just, you know,
And we got the
paying it forward. Nice.
Yeah, I know.
I love it.
Sorry,
That's exactly it. I mean, that's what we've been all doing here this whole time. Really, at the end of the day, from our studios to different things, it's just, and that's the one great thing about, I think, the art community in general. People pay it forward a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and people are very open to helping people along the way. So
yeah,
let's do it up. Pay it forward.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
dude.
like I said, if anybody, if you're around Saturday, swing on by TennoCon. It's gonna be a lot of fun if you're a Warframe fan. But
yeah. And if you want to check out any of our work, all the links are in the body of the below, from old stuff to new stuff to everything stuff. And we hope to grow and make things more interesting and more fun.
Thanks for listening to us chat, ramble about our silly lives growing up and stuff. But hopefully, some people got some
insight
or some
maybe. We'll see what happens.
Maybe they realize that. Oh wait, anybody can do this because really anyone can do it. So
there is no plan. They're all fools.
There's no plan.
Thank you for everybody. All right.
Yeah. Well, it's good having you along, Sarah, and all the rest of you there. And
yes,
Rob,
everybody.
thank you so much. And Ramon, I love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
And
cheers.
A little
have a good night.
Cheers.
Boom.
I can't wait to come up and see you all right to the camera. And yeah, cheers, everyone. Thanks for coming again.
Good night.
Good night.
Nice. That's fantastic.